Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim Matthews. Tim, we have an interesting topic today, my friend. I know, deliberately guys are transparently, Tim and I are both a little tired. I think I have 2 sick ones, so we're going to make it through this because this is an important topic here. And the topic, as you guys can see in the title, is what is the number one thing women find sexy in a man? And Tim, I brought this to the table. We've talked about this actually quite a bit in a different way. And let me give you guys a little backstory. So I have a dirty little habit. I have something that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit. When I'm in my free time, my downtime, I'm on TikTok. I know. It's one of those things, but I follow coaches, I follow entrepreneurs, I follow people who I find to be very inspiring. So if you're not on TikTok, don't judge me because I don't really watch a lot of the singing and dancing stuff, but I get motivation and business insights from it. And one of the people I do follow is a relationship coach. Now, this happens to be a woman, right? And what she does is she specializes in giving relationship advice from a woman's point of view. And she's been doing it for a long time. And so she talks about in this one that I encountered at, I don't know, it was 1:30 in the morning or so. I had a 1.5-year-old up. My wife was tending to her, and I had a 4-year-old up, and I was tending to him. I was walking back and I couldn't sleep. And so I got up early, as you know, Tim, because I messaged you. But I pulled this up. I wanted a little brain candy. So I pulled into TikTok, as I sipped my coffee that early in the morning. And this came up and I found it very interesting. So she said, do you know what the number one thing that women find sexy in a man? Almost irresistible. And these are her words, right? Is putting a woman in her place. I was like, whoa, that's, in this society of toxic masculinity and all of these things that are said about men, that's very harsh words that could be taken out of context. And it was said by a woman who specializes in this, right? This is her one specialty. And then she backs it up. The thing that women want and find sexy is when a man says no to them and puts them in their place and holds firm boundaries, right? And this is something we talk about a lot, guys, on the show. Tim's talked about it quite a bit in our podcasts. You guys are all real smart. You can go over to thepowerfulman.com, find the podcast page, do a search for boundaries. We have a number of podcasts that cover this topic. So I'll dive in a little bit more of what she talks about. But Tim, I know this is something that you've been teaching guys for years about, and you've held firm in your life and your relationships. What do you think about when you hear this coming from a woman who specializes in, dating for men?
Think about at first, it shocked me, scared me, and excited me.
Why did it shock you?
I didn't expect it. I was thinking like playfulness or confidence or purpose, direction, like decisiveness, which I guess if you got the decisiveness and direction and purpose, you can sometimes, you can sometimes have this, but we know a lot, we work with a lot of men who have the decisiveness in business, yet they don't have the boundaries in the relationships. It's not a given. And the reason why it scared me and excited me is because for me, it's a conversation and a practice that I'm constantly in reflection of with myself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm constantly looking at how am I doing it? And it's interesting because I was speaking to Amelia's mum maybe a couple of months ago. And Amelia was trying to get her own way, and Amelia's mum was there. And when Amelia's mum left the room, she said, interesting. I said, to what was she like as a kid? How did she try and get her own way? It's like that there she used to try to do to you. That's what she used to do to her dad. And that's exactly how she used to get away. And she used to wrap her dad around a little finger. So basically, I just make fun of her with it now. I call it a princess fit. Like, stop having a princess fit. Just leave it. You're going overboard. Just leave it. And we make fun of it and light of it. But we had a great conversation about it the other night when she was doing it. I'd told her no, not told her no, but I'd said no for a request of hers. And I said, look, we talk about respecting each other's boundaries. You're not respecting mine. I said, no. And now you're trying to manipulate me and play tit for tat to get your own way because this is what you used to do. And she starts laughing. Right. So it excites me and scares me because that when you do this, the result is always good. I feel good. I feel confident. It brings us closer together. And it scares me because I always find it a little bit, depending on what the context is and how firm I have to be and how I back it up, it can sometimes require a level of confrontation. Right, not in an aggressive way per se, but it just requires energy, doesn't it? It requires a charge to be like, no, boom. At least it does for me sometimes, and that means it can be easy not to do at times, but then you lose respect and you lose everything else. And it can also be easy to do. It's one of those things that when you do it, it can just be it's kind of like you have a magic trick up your sleeve. When you learn the game that's being played and you can see it being played and you know how to play it, it's like, ooh. But equally, when you know the game that's been played and you know how to play and you don't play, then it's like, ooh, in the other way as well.
It is. And, as you say that, I think about my relationship with my wife. And she reacts differently than Amelia does. What she does is she kind of pulls back her love, right? She gets angry and pulls back her love. And I think, as you said, with Amelia and her dad, I'm trying to picture, I think she kind of does it with her dad, but her dad always gives in, right? And so my wife is expecting me to give in, right? She pulls back her love. She gets upset, angry. She goes withdraws and kind of pouts. But when I don't give in and I stand super firm, she always comes back. We usually end up having sex then too, now that I think about it. But, that idea of standing firm. Now, what this woman is saying, which I find really interesting because it also ties into what we talk about being the lighthouse versus the tugboat. What she's saying is, femininity, right? Femininity is wild and free. She doesn't say this, but this is me, elaborating on what she's saying. Is wild and free. And masculine is very foundationally rock solid, right? It's rooted into the earth, so to speak, like an oak tree. Or we use the lighthouse analogy in the activation method a lot and through the Powerful Man movement. And so to use the lighthouse analogy, femininity is like water and it's crashing against the lighthouse. If the lighthouse crumbles, right, she can't trust it. She can't trust it. So the feminine energy needs something to push against to know that there's boundaries that are going to protect her, right? They're going to keep her safe. That it's going to be a container through which she can unleash her feminine wilds, right? The wild side inside of her. I talk about this all the time because I think most guys miss it about I don't remember how many millions of copies of 50 Shades of Grey that were sold. It was like 100 million or more copies, I think you said, Tim, on one of the podcasts. It's absolutely phenomenal, right? And so if you think women don't have this kinky, freaky side to them, guys, you're wildly wrong. But they need this masculine container of which to bounce off of in order to explore that. And unfortunately, this is why we see so many guys. We talk to thousands of guys every month. It's unfortunately why some guys find out that their wife's having an affair, and emotional or otherwise, is because she wants to live this dark side out, this fantasy side, but she doesn't feel safe doing it to you. Now, one other thing, Tim, when I heard her talking about this, and I posted this into our community as well. So guys, you can go back a couple days and look and find that post where I share her follow-up video to this. But one of the things I think is really interesting is, putting a woman in her place. Okay, let's think about that. That's really standing in your power, setting boundaries and saying, no, I will not put up with this action, whatever it may be. Right. And if you're doing that with what I call engaged indifference, so you're calm, you're centered, you're focused, you're engaged, but you're indifferent of the reaction, you're out of deer mode and you're into wolf mode. Right. Because think about it. When my wife, for example, does something that crosses my boundaries, and if she pouts and takes her love away and I break down and say, hey, babe, fine. Why don't you go out with the girls tonight? I'll watch the kids and cook dinner, even though you agreed to do it. I'll just do it. I'll be the nice guy. right? It's a default for a lot of us. I'm going into deer mode, right? I'm reacting to her energy. I'm reacting to the way that she is acting, right? And that's part of what we teach within deer versus wolf, right? The wolf uses his wisdom and things that he's set upon. And so that's the W in wolf. So these are the things that we want to look at from a holistic standpoint. Now, publicly, I would never say, hey, you guys, you need to put your woman in her place, because that strikes up images of a guy being physically abusive or emotionally or verbally abusive. That is not what I'm talking about. And certainly it doesn't sound like it's what she's talking about either, this woman. But I just want to make it abundantly clear before I get the hate emails from the women that listen to this. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is stand your ground for what you believe in and what you've agreed to. So if you have agreements in your relationship, you get to stand for those, right? If something's not right, you get to stand up for yourself. That doesn't mean be a jerk. That doesn't mean that you pout and you throw your toys and everything. If your wife does something, that means you be an adult, a grown-ass man, and you stand up for yourself in a very firm way when it's appropriate.
I wonder whether she means, or she's alluding to the fact that women are going to test men.
100%.
Right? So when you have an agreement and you create a boundary, the boundary, like you were saying a minute ago, is going to be tested. So, we talk about shit tests. It's the first time listening, then, go back and there's some other podcasts around the hidden motives technique. They'll talk about this and the clean slate method. But anyway, and the idea in there is the boundary, the container, is going to be tested to see how secure it is, like you said a moment ago. Because if it's solid and consistent and secure, then okay, cool, I can trust it, right? And I think that's what she's alluding to here, that the place for the woman is when you resist and you pass that test and she knows that you're not going to go anywhere, when she is testing and when she is maybe been a bit wild and feminine, and you're going to stand firm and be the lighthouse and stay strong and be there and love her through it, then it puts her in her place and reminds her, okay, cool, I'm okay here. And it's interesting. I just, as you know, came off the back of the weekly Inner Circle accountability call. One of the guys on there was talking about a lesson that he had this past week, and it was a win. And he's, recently started dating a new woman, and she found out that he's been dating her for a few months. But anyway, she found out that he was still on a dating site. He just forgotten to take it down, right? And she was hurt by this, and she questioned him because these guys have been growing quite close. And the way that he responded was completely with the wolf, wise, open, loving, fierce, right? He just said, hey, look, honestly, yeah, I admit I could have taken my profile down since you and I got connected. But honestly, it was nice in the beginning to get the attention from the women. I know we were getting together, and I didn't know where that was going to go. And having come out of a marriage, it was nice to know that I was still desired by people. But you're right, moving forwards, I'll take that down, and you're the only woman for me. And the way that he handled it, he didn't get reacted. He didn't defend himself. He just stayed solid and firm and not only what he said, but how he said it. It came from a very calm place where he owned his part in it. And she even said to him, wow, I wasn't expecting that kind of response from you. So she comes at him with a, hey, this is a complaint. He stands firm, right? Doesn't react, doesn't defend, nullifies the attack, maintains his boundary. He's not going to start, losing himself and start chasing her, right? That then puts her in, quote unquote, her place. And that her place is a place of safety. It's a place of trust. She went from, hey, I don't know if I can trust you, to, hey, wow, I trust you.
Yep.
And that's that place of safety.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And he also went through a place of power, in my opinion, because he became vulnerable vulnerable from a place of power. Like, hey, here's what was occurring for me. This is just a fact. And I'm moving on. And that's a leader, right? I have a feeling I know which guy you're talking about here. And that's a guy that's just or has become a leader, I would say, as he's found himself on his journey. And it's really beautiful thing to see. And a lot of guys get the opportunity to do this. And what I keep coming back to, Tim, is how so many of us men, especially us married businessmen, are conditioned to be the nice guy at home, right? And when these things happen, when our wives test our boundaries, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. We blow up. We react. We get pissed. We get angry. We get frustrated. We may not yell or scream or do anything like that, but we may throw our toys, as you say. But we may be like the kid, or that pouts, so to speak, in our own way, and we react in a way that oftentimes we regret, which then brings in shame and guilt. We feel guilty about the way we reacted. We start thinking, it's not that big of a deal. Why'd I react that way? And then we try to cover it up by doing more to make up for it, which further cements this beta positioning in the relationship. And so we've lost that alpha edge. And this is what I think she's saying when she's saying, look, if your woman is going to test her boundaries, shit test, fitness test, whatever you want to call it, it's going to happen all the time, by the way, guys. It never ends. When she tests her boundaries, if you hold those boundaries firm, that gives her more freedom and allows her to release her femininity because she's safe, she's secure, she knows where she stands with you. She can go out in the world and conquer it in her own way. It really provides the feminine energy to thrive because now she is faced with a powerful masculine energy that's looking out for her best interest.
Yep.
So guys, here's a couple things you can do. One, I invite you to go over to our community, whether you're in Workplace as one of our alumni or on Facebook. I post it in both places, and you can see this woman's follow-up video. You can find it. It's a post that I did. You might have to dig back a few posts. We have an active community, which I love, but check it out. And I'd love to know what you guys think. The second thing that I'd like you guys to do is figure out what your boundaries are. I think a lot of you guys, if you're like me, you haven't really sat down and figured out what those boundaries are. So when the feminine energy, your wife, pushes against them, you don't know where the boundaries are either. You just know it doesn't feel good, right? So figure out what your boundaries are. What's acceptable for you, right? And there's some big ones that are kind of obvious. Is it acceptable for her to, go on a trip with another man, right? Work or what otherwise? Is it acceptable for her to be talking to her exes on social media? So start with the big ones, right? Those are easier to quantify for most of us men, and then you'll work through them. And obviously, if you guys are interested, join the activation method, right? That's a great place to go deeper into this and discover how to come from this place of engaged indifference and stay out of what we call your shadow stick man, right? And the shadow stick man is something we've dived into a little bit in previous podcasts, but frankly, it's too much to go into. You really need that coach to kind of spar with, so to speak, on this, and really go back and forth till you get it out. But look at that shadow stick man and make sure he's not coming to the game. It's you, your masculine self, that's coming to the game. Tim, as always, I love your insights on these and appreciate you being here. Guys, that's a wrap for us here at the Powerful Man Show. We'll see you next time.